The energy around the transfer window is electric, isn't it? Especially when you see massive clubs like Chelsea circling big targets and actually making moves.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about signing players. It's, a high-stakes game where the decisions they make right now are going to fundamentally shape their future, the look of the squad, maybe even a title challenge next season.
It absolutely sets the tone.
Yeah.
Every player targeted, every negotiation, it's all driven by a strategic vision, addressing specific needs, adding quality, and, well, getting the right pieces in place for the intense challenges ahead.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Pulling apart the material you shared with us, we're going to kind of focus specifically on Chelsea's recent push in the transfer market, particularly as they gear up for the Club World Cup, which is coming up sooner than you might think. There's always a huge amount of noise out there. But our mission here is to cut right through it. We want to hone in on the specific players linked, understand the potential thinking behind these big potential deals, and figure out what all this could actually mean for the Chelsea squad you follow.
Think of this as your shortcut to being really well informed on Chelsea's transfer strategy right now. Like getting the key facts and insights directly from the detailed sources you provided.
Absolutely. So if you find this kind of deep dive helpful, getting straight to the important stuff from the material you care about, make sure you follow or subscribe right now wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss the next deep dive we do into the topics that matter to you. Okay, we've got a fascinating stack of information covering potential incomings and one really significant confirmed deal. Let's start out wide, on the left wing, where Chelsea has a clear gap.
Right. So the decision was made to send Jadon Sancho back to Manchester United, not taking up that option to buy. That immediately leaves a spot open on the left side of the attack. And the name that keeps resurfacing, certainly in the material we have, is Jamie Gittens from Borussia Dortmund. He's a player who's been on the radar for a while. Liverpool were linked with him back in January, remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. So Chelsea has now stepped into the picture for him. So what's the latest? What's the reporting say on the potential transfer?
Well, the information indicates Chelsea made an initial offer, reportedly around $29.5 million, which was rejected by Dortmund over the weekend.
Okay.
Dortmund's valuation, from what we've seen, is quite a bit higher, looking for something in the region of £40 to $50 million.
Okay, so there's a significant price difference there. Why Gittens, though? What makes him a specific target for Chelsea, do you think?
Well, a few key things stand out from the analysis. Firstly, his age. He's only 20.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, he's English, which is a massive plus for homegrown player requirements in the Premier League and for, Champions League squad registration.
Right, which Chelsea will need next season.
Exactly. He ticks that box very clearly.
And he really stepped up last season, didn't he? The numbers and the sources are pretty compelling.
They are, yeah. He dramatically increased his starts, going from, 14 league starts the season before to 21 last term.
Wow.
That translated into real output, 8 goals and 3 assists in the league. And it wasn't just against smaller teams. He scored in some really big fixtures.
Like that brace against Frankfurt.
Yeah, Frankfurt brace and goals against Leverkusen, Bayern, Gladbach, even Real Madrid in the Champions League.
Here's where the material gets really interesting, though. It highlights that he seemed to fade a bit in the second half of the season. What's the insight into why that might have happened?
Yeah, that's a point raised in the analysis.
Yeah.
A likely factor is simply that it was his first full season playing, significant amount of senior football at that level as a 20-year-old. He may have just kind of run out of steam a bit.
Makes sense.
Plus, the tactical shift at Dortmund after Nuri Sahin left and Niko Kovac implemented that 3-4-3 formation. It didn't seem to fully complement Gittens' game. The reporting suggests Dortmund favored other players in more central attacking roles within that specific system.
But his profile potentially fits Chelsea's style better. Is that the idea?
That seems to be the thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
The way Chelsea typically play, they do value quick, agile, wide players who are comfortable cutting inside onto their stronger foot. Gittens has the raw tools for that. He's exceptionally fast, very agile. And his shooting showed really noticeable improvement last season. The data indicates over 20% more of his shots are on target, and he was taking them from better, closer positions. He actually overperformed his expected goals, his XG last season.
Okay, explain XG quickly for anyone unsure.
Right, yeah. So XG basically measures how likely a shot is to be a goal based on where it's taken from, the type of shot, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Him overperforming suggests his finishing in those moments was particularly sharp, even if maybe the chances themselves weren't always gilt-edged.
Gotcha. Okay, any specific areas the analysis flags for improvement?
Yes, the material notes his decision-making in the final third can sometimes be, well, inconsistent, and his crossing needs development.
Right.
He's not primarily a creator at this stage. The analysis highlights that even someone like Trevor Chalobah, playing deeper, reportedly had better expected assists per 90, the XA stat.
Right, which measures the chance a pass becomes an assist.
Exactly. So pure creativity isn't his main strength right now.
So considering the strengths, weaknesses, and that price tag around 40-50 million, what's the value proposition here? Does it stack up?
Well, the crucial insight here, according to the analysis, is the comparison. When you look at someone like Garnacho, who'd probably cost significantly more, 45 million for Gittins, who is 5 years younger than Sancho, and only maybe 15-20 million more than the 25 million pound option Chelsea rejected for Sancho, it could represent a strong piece of business. It's a deal on potential and that homegrown value, assuming Chelsea can meet Dortmund's asking price, of course.
Right. Big assumption there.
Okay, shifting gears completely now. From the wing to a crucial area of the pitch, goalkeeper. There's a clear consensus that Chelsea need an upgrade on Robert Sanchez, and Mike Mignon is the big name linked.
Yeah, this is a move Chelsea is reportedly pushing very hard for, perhaps even hoping to make significant progress on soon. Even if it's not wrapped up immediately, the expectation is this will be a persistent pursuit.
The suggested figures for this potential deal seem surprisingly low from Chelsea's side, based on the reports around 20-25 million mentioned. Seems kind of low, right?
They do seem low, yeah. And the information you provided notes Chelsea's reasoning might be influenced by having sold Christian Pulisic to Milan for around 20 million a couple of years ago when he had only 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah, but that comparison feels a bit, well, ungenerous to Milan, doesn't it? It's hardly apples to apple. The analysis agrees. No, absolutely not. The key difference is absolutely massive. Mignon is Milan's undisputed number one, he's France's number one, and a vital leadership figure in their squad. Pulisic, by the time he left Chelsea, wasn't a regular starter.
True.
So while Milan might be feeling a bit of sympathy from the Pulisic deal, Mignon is fundamentally way more important for them now than Pulisic was for Chelsea then. Milan are in a much stronger negotiating position here.
Okay, sympathy aside, what would Chelsea be gaining with Mignon? What's the profile?
Oh, a guaranteed top-tier upgrade. He is an absolute star goalkeeper. He was instrumental in Milan winning Serie A in the 2021-22 season.
Yeah, he was incredible that year.
He really was. And in that campaign, there was a strong argument he was the best shot stopper in the world. Milan's title was built significantly on a strong defense, and he was the cornerstone of that. He's also described as a player with significant character and presence. Big personality.
What's the potential downside or concern highlighted in the material? The big red flag.
Well, the main flag is his injury record. It hasn't been good over recent seasons, and Milan have struggled noticeably during the lengthy periods he's been sidelined. That's the worry.
Yeah, that injury risk is a genuine concern, especially for a keeper. But what's the strategic benefit for Chelsea even with that? Why take the risk?
Look, the insight here is that bringing in a proven star like Mignon, even with potential injury issues, provides essential top-level quality as the primary keeper. It allows an understudy, whether that's Sanchez or someone else, to step in without facing the immense pressure of being the sole number one behind a defense that has had its wobbles.
Right, takes the heat off.
Exactly. If Chelsea is serious about pushing for a credible title challenge and competing in the Champions League next season, they need a keeper of Mignon's caliber. Having him there, backed by capable cover for any absences, puts them in a far stronger position than relying solely on younger or less proven options in goal. So despite the injury history, the analysis frames this as a potentially very positive, albeit risky, strategic move.
Okay, makes sense. Let's talk about the front line then. The material suggests Chelsea is looking for a third striker, even though they have Jackson, Nkunku, and another confirmed signing we'll discuss shortly. Hugo Ekitike is a prominent name on that list.
Yes, Ekitike and Sesko are mentioned as key targets for that third striker spot. However, the information available makes it clear this looks like an incredibly difficult deal to pull off, potentially throughout the entire summer window. Could be tough. Really tough.
Is that primarily because of Eintracht Frankfurt, his club? Are they just playing hardball?
Precisely. Frankfurt have a well-earned reputation for being extremely effective at selling players for premium fees. We've seen it with Kolo Muani, Jovic, Marmoush.
Yeah, they get top dollar.
You do. And their reported asking price for Ekitike is staggering. 84 million or 100 million.
84 million. Wow. That is an enormous figure.
It really is. And to put that into perspective, the analysis notes it would be the 7th most expensive signing in Premier League history.
Wow.
And only one striker has ever been signed for more money in the Premier League. Romelu Lukaku, ironically, when he joined Chelsea. A move that, as the material diplomatically puts it, ended pretty disastrously compared to the investment.
Ouch indeed. So, okay, for that kind of money, Ekitike must have some extraordinary upsides. What does the reporting say about his strengths? What's the good stuff?
Well, his season last year was described as absolutely remarkable. He scored 15 goals in the Bundesliga, and significantly, 14 of those were non-penalty goals.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And a fascinating detail from the stats shared is that he actually underperformed his expected goals, XG, significantly, meaning the quality of chances he got should, on average, have resulted in more goals.
So you could argue he should have scored even more.
Exactly. While you could see that as needing to improve his finishing in those moments, it also suggests the potential is there for even bigger numbers. His combined expected goals and expected assists per 90, so his XG plus A per 90, it was an incredibly high 0.99. Statistically, he was expected to contribute to a goal almost every game based on his actions.
Okay, that's huge.
He's widely seen as having enormous potential, with comparisons even drawn to someone like Alexander Isak.
Okay. What are the key concerns then at that kind of price tag, besides the obvious price itself?
Well, the primary one raised in the material is consistency at the highest level. Last season was his first time playing over 1,300 league minutes in a top league. He had a promising season at Reims before that, but then struggled to nail down a starting spot at PSG.
Right, so it's really only one truly top season.
Pretty much. So the big question, the 84 million question, is whether a club is willing to pay that astronomical sum for a player who's really only had one consistently outstanding season at a top club. This deal is predicted to be one that could run deep into the window.
And circling back, why are Chelsea even in the market for a third striker when they have Jackson and Nkunku and a confirmed signing? Just remind us.
Well, the reporting highlights that Chelsea felt the lack of consistent high-level output last season. Nicholas Jackson had spells of great form, but also periods that were, up and down.
Christopher Nkunku's season was heavily impacted by injuries, and he hasn't consistently shown the form he did at RB Leipzig yet. And the assessment of someone like Margu was that he felt more like a player for, say, the Conference League group stage last season, rather than leading the line consistently in tougher competitions.
Got it.
So to compete across multiple fronts, especially in the Champions League, which demands a higher standard, they clearly feel they need more quality and depth up top.
Okay, let's move to that confirmed striker deal, because the material frames this one as a truly massive positive. Liam Delap's move is reportedly done. Sounds like a really good one.
Yes, the deal is confirmed, and the analysis calls it potentially one of the bargains of the summer. A really interesting detail is that he reportedly turned down the chance to play at the Under-21 Euros to participate in the Club World Cup with Chelsea.
Wow, that's a huge commitment. A real statement of intent from the player. So what does that mean for him immediately? He's straight in for the U.S. trip.
It means he will travel with the squad to the U.S. for the Club World Cup. Yeah. Giving him an immediate, early opportunity to stake a claim for minutes and show what he can do against top opposition.
Great chance for him.
The only minor downside mentioned is that he's had barely any time off, although his summer would have likely been busy with the U21s anyway, so maybe not a huge difference.
Fair point. So what kind of player is Liam Delap, according to the reports? What's he like?
Well, he had his first full season in the Premier League last year with a struggling Ipswich side. But he played almost every minute, scored important goals, and just looked physically and mentally ready for the demands of the league.
Good signs.
He's described as someone who can genuinely make things happen on his own, possessing maverick tendencies. He has the ability to beat a man and score goals from what might seem like lower percentage angles. He's definitely not a predictable or boring attacker.
That's a particularly interesting point, especially considering the common narrative around players coming through Guardiola's Manchester City Academy, sometimes being seen as overly focused on passing and possession,
Yeah, the analysis specifically contrasts that idea.
Yeah.
It highlights other prominent English players who've come through the City Academy, like Cole Palmer,
right,
James McAtee, who also possess these strong individualistic or maverick traits and have the ability to break from script and take games into their own hands. Seeing Liam Delap potentially link up with Cole Palmer at Chelsea, given their shared history coming through that system,
yeah,
that's highlighted as a really intriguing prospect.
Yeah, could be fun.
It suggests City's academy does produce players with that individual flair, not just system players.
And what's the impact of Delap's arrival on the existing strikers, particularly Nicholas Jackson? Does this take pressure off him?
His arrival definitely takes some significant pressure off Nicholas Jackson. Jackson showed resilience last season, bouncing back from criticism that the sources feel was sometimes unfair during his first campaign, and proving he's a really top attacker when on form.
Yeah, he took a lot of stick.
He did. The Lab's presence means Jackson doesn't have the sole weight of expectation on his shoulders every game. This is crucial depth for a club aiming to compete in the Champions League next season, which is a significant step up in standard and demands compared to the Conference League. It also underscores a broader strategic point evident in the reporting. Chelsea's increasing focus on signing young, ready players from other English academies like Palmer from City, Lavia from Southampton, and now Delap from City's system via Ipswich,
Right.
plus the links to Gittins we talked about.
Yeah, it's a clear pattern.
It suggests that currently, a key part of Chelsea's recruitment strategy is acquiring these players who are already integrated into the English game and ready for first-team minutes, complementing their own academy output rather than solely relying on promoting their own graduates for significant minutes at this immediate top level.
Okay, let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture. How does Chelsea's early activity compare to some of the other clubs mentioned in the material, particularly those also involved in the Club World Cup? City, Liverpool.
Well, the reports highlight that Manchester City have also been active early, which makes sense given their Club World Cup involvement. They've confirmed deals like Reinders and Ryan Sherhant. Liverpool have also moved early and are notably framed in the material as potentially having won this initial phase of the transfer window.
Really? Won it already?
Yeah, deals for players like Kirkes look likely, and the Wirtz deal is described as only a matter of time.
Ended up winning the mini window already. Why that perspective? What's the thinking?
Well, the strong feeling from the analysis is that Liverpool are operating from a position of significant strength, having won the title by such a clear margin last season. Everyone else, to some extent, feels like they're playing catch-up. There's even a suggestion that City's early business might be partly a reaction to the psychological pressure of chasing a Liverpool side that seems to be strengthening from an already dominant position. Cherkev is mentioned as an impressive City signing, mind you, seen as the next best thing if they couldn't secure Wirtz, perhaps. But ultimately, the argument presented is that Liverpool has a psychological edge from their title win and are reinforcing the best team in the country. Nevertheless, City and Chelsea, propelled perhaps by the need to be ready for the Club World Cup, have certainly made clear statements of intent with their early moves.
So, pulling all this information and analysis together, what does this deep dive into the specific potential and confirmed deals really mean for you if you're following Chelsea? What's the takeaway?
It shows a really clear and ambitious intent from the club based on the material you provided. They are actively looking to upgrade key areas, goalkeepers being perhaps the most critical, and adding significant depth and quality potential on the wing and up front. They are explicitly building a squad designed to compete on multiple fronts next season, with the Champions League return and the Club World Cup firmly in mind.
And it's a continued and in some cases very expensive investment in high potential young talent, even when that comes with question marks like, injury concerns in Mignon's case or a lack of sustained top level consistency in Ekatiks or Gittins.
It definitely signals a strategic shift from some of the squad issues seen last season, like the reliance on an sometimes inconsistent Jackson or the impact of Nkunku's injuries. The focus is now firmly on building a team with the depth and quality needed for a serious challenge in the Champions League and potentially at the top of the Premier League. And as we highlighted with Delap, a key pillar of their current strategy involves identifying and acquiring ready-to-contribute young players from other established academies within the English game alongside their own development pathways.
That gives us a detailed look at some of the most significant potential and confirmed transfer activity for Chelsea right now, all drawn directly from the sources you shared. It's an aggressive, expensive, and clearly defined approach aimed at rapidly reshaping the team.
It certainly sets up a fascinating few weeks and months ahead.
Yeah. As you process all this, here's a thought to leave you with from the information we've covered. Considering the huge sums being invested in players who are still largely operating on potential, like that reported price tag for Ekatik, or the questions around Gittins' consistency, and the willingness to target players with significant injury concerns like Mignon, is this transfer strategy truly sustainable for Chelsea in the long run? Or is it viewed as a necessary high-stakes gamble they must take to close the gap quickly?
Good question.
And perhaps a related thought, how much will the very early Club World Cup involvement actually impact their Premier League start, particularly for players like Delap who are sacrificing rest to be involved?
Yeah, that lack of preseason rest could be a factor.
Big questions to consider as the summer window unfolds. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into your source material.
Yeah, fascinating window ahead.
We'll catch you in the next one.